kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, good morning. Howdy there, daylight burners. Hope you all had a good weekend. It is Monday, November 20th, and this is the Friggin Farm and Ranch Report. Started off, we'll get right into it. I had a good weekend, but it's a news show, so we're going to get right into it. Cattle on feed numbers and a market report. Let's see, we'll go with, here we go. This is the market report. We'll come back to the cattle on feed numbers, but this is as of Friday afternoon. Live cattle finished out 176.80. That was up 145.70. Feeder cattle at 228.50, up 1. Hogs were down 17.5 cents at 75.45. Corn down 8 at 485.25. Soybeans down 18.50 at 13.565. Wheat was down 5.25 at 575.75. And cotton was up 63 cents at 81.51. Dow Jones was up 1.81 at 34.947 and 28 cents. NASDAQ up 11.81 to 14.125. S&P was up 5.78. And so stock markets finished up because the Fed acted like they're going to not raise interest rates. We'll see how that goes. Stock market looked okay, but if you look at on the agricultural side, cattle finished up a little bit, hogs finished down, but all your major commodities are finishing way down. Energy, so crude oil is up $2.90 at 75.80 a barrel. Heating oil's up slightly, essentially even for the week. Natural gas down 11 cents at $2.95. So yeah, we're gonna see. I think that we're gonna see those energy prices go up. Box beef choice was down 85 at 293.87. Select was up 305 at 270.70. Choice select spread there at 23.17. 85 loads compared to 137 last Thursday. So production was down. There was see if there's anything. Okay, so the cash cattle trade, live sales down $2 to $3 to 178. So thus far for Friday in the Southern Plains, negotiated cash trade was mostly inactive on light demand. The most recent market in Texas Panhandle was Thursday, with live FOB purchases traded at 178. Most recent market in Kansas was Thursday, with live FOB purchases traded at 178. In Nebraska and the Western Corn Belt, negotiated cash trading was limited on light demand. Most recent market in Nebraska was Thursday, live FOBs traded at 178. The most recent market was Thursday. Delivered was Wednesday at 282. The Corbett got to proofread these a little bit so I can read them off better. I guess it wasn't Corbett, but anyway, it's on the National Beef Wires where I'm getting this. Most recent market report in the Western Corn Belt was Thursday, with live FOB purchases traded at 178. The most recent market in the Western Corn Belt was Thursday, with dress delivery purchases at 282. So not much going there. And then here's the cattle on feed numbers. if this page shows anything different, but 11.9 million head as of November 1st. That's up from last year by about 71,000 head. Placements were up as well, 79,000 at 2.164 million. Marketing was 1.78 million, which is down from last year about 46,000. And other disappearances were 55,000 heads, so up 1,000 from last year. Pretty big increase. So it was about 195,000 head increase from last year. During October, placements with cattle and calves weighing less than 600 pounds were 550,000 head. 6 weights were 470,000 head. 7 weights were 465,000. 8 weights coming in at 394,000. 9 weights at 205,000, and 1,000 pound and greater was 80,000 head. 1.76 million head of marketing of fed cattle, 3% below 2022. So it's just, we're seeing more of this drought stuff have an impact. It's it's just low cattle inventory. The the Midwest and the West is looking in pretty decent shape as far as moisture goes. Of course, is it really decent shape after such a huge drought? Not really, but as far as moisture levels go, I think it's been looking pretty decent coming in this this El Nino cycle. But the southeast is in pretty dire straits, it sounds like. And once again, and if you're there in the southeast region and wouldn't mind discussing how you guys manage drought down there, because I'm honestly just having a hard time picturing what a drought in the southeast looks like. I remember talking to Bennett Kirk, I think's his name. He's from Georgia, young kid. I think he's still in high school. He was doing a podcast there for a while when I first, right after I first started. But I'm from Dust Bowl country, so like the only thing that gets more deserty than that is like the Sahara, and then you're just you're picking out fine tooth in your grains of sand there, because it's it's like splitting hairs. But I was using a desert analogy because trying to be funny here. That one didn't land, at least not with me. Hope it did with you. Probably not. Anyway, I apologize. I'm not funny all the time. I try most of the time, but that one didn't work. Anyways, so anyways, I don't know what a drought in the southeast looks like, because as far as I know, there's just water everywhere down there, and it's a foreign concept to me. Like rain in general is kind of a foreign concept when you live outside of Montana, but it was too cold to produce any moisture when I was up there. But there was plenty of snow on the ground, and when that shit finally did thaw up, boy, the mud was outrageous. So outside of that short little stint, I've resided in arid climates, so just rain in general is a pretty foreign concept, and a good chunk of my life we've been in a pretty major drought. So I don't recall a whole lot of like wet years. They're pretty few and far between where I live. So when it comes to the southeast, where you have swamps and tall grass and lots of rain, I don't know what a drought looks like down there. So I'm trying, because it doesn't turn into the Dust Bowl, doesn't turn into the Sahara. So that's my vision of an extreme drought. Or say at the end of 2012, where it was just nothing but varying shades of yellow and brown year round, like middle of summer, the spring, when everything's normally green, you just have brown and yellow and dust storms. So like that's what I'm used to for a drought, and I know they're not having that level of of drought down south, but for them, drought means a whole different thing, and so I'm just curious as to what that looks like and how people deal with it. So I already got Thad on board. So if there's any other you guys, I was trying to brainstorm the other day and think of who might be a good fit for this. So but if any of y'all from the southeast region hear this and wouldn't mind having a little discussion about it, let me know. So but that being said, where was the drought monitor? I think it was on this one. Yeah. All right. We'll pop that up on the screen instead. And it's a mostly dry week, except for the Northwest and Texas. Almost every Midwestern state saw drought and dryness worsen. But there's not much drought in the Midwest at the moment. So South and Southeast received precipitation, but not enough yet. Exceptional drought expanded in Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee as of November 14th. 31.46 of the U.S. and Puerto Rico and about 37.45% of the lower 48 states are in drought, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. 55.75. The continuous U.S. is in drought this week compared to 55.12% last year and 81.91% last year. So we're in a lot better shape as compared to last year overall. There's some parts of the world that are definitely not as good, but overall, yeah, it's better than last year. So we're we're always one day closer to a drought breaking. Like that's all you can think about it is it's like you're one day closer. And eventually it will rain and eventually it'll be green and and then you're just one day closer to being in a drought. So that's how things go. That's how life works. But speaking of how life works, Congress appears to maybe be attempting to work, but Biden signs a funding bill to avert the shutdown. It also extends the farm bill. Farm groups say the lawmakers will still need to work quickly as they are running out of time to write the long-awaited agricultural spending package. President Joe Biden signed a short-term funding package on Thursday that includes a one-year farm bill extension. The law, which averts a partial government shutdown, gives. Is my microphone working? That should be working. I hope. Let me check that real quick. I'm recording a backup, but I'm also going. All right, looks like we're good. All right, back to it. The law, which averts a partial government shutdown, gives ag negotiators until September 30th, 2024 to pass a farm bill. Congressional leaders and farm groups have said an extension was necessary to provide certainty for farmers and prevent a reversion back to Depression-era law for major agricultural support systems. It would be probably mass chaos for that, should like the farm bill actually expire and like no deal gets made and no extension and like the funding just shuts off for those programs. Like it would be chaos. However, like ripping a Band-Aid off and just getting it done, like the resulting chaos would produce a much better sector of the economy. Like that. It would suck and it would hurt and a lot of people would go under. A lot of people. A lot of banks would probably go under too, but yeah, it'd probably be better off in the long run. But as we can see, when it comes to shit like this, when they know like the alternative is going to be not great, they'll figure something out, and they do what they always do is spend more money. So that's all it was. There was no No changes on the farm bill side of things. It was just a straight extension. No reform, no cuts, no increase. It was just status quo. Let's see. Growers are already making decisions for the 2024 crop based on markets, growing conditions, and risk calculations, said Harold Wall, president of the National Corn Growers Association. This extension provides us with much needed certainty around the commodity title and other important USDA programs, but we continue to advocate for a full reauthorization of the Farm Bill as soon as possible. Stopgap funding also supports the U.S. Department of Agriculture through January 19th, setting up the potential for a contentious fight for funding in the new year. USDA financing has become mired by calls for deep cuts and policy riders on abortion access and other non-starters for Democrats. Hey, what on both sides of the aisle, like what does abortion access have to do with commodity prices? Which essentially is what the Farm Bill was supposed to be for. Like it was supposed to keep the farmers from going under and stabilize the commodity markets. And now we're talking about abortion access on the Farm Bill. But why? It's because food stamps are related, or it's all thrown in with the Farm Bill. And who's on food stamps but poor people? And who gets the abortions? Mostly rich people, but they portray it as like the plight of the poor person to be able to get an abortion, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, even with the food stamps end of it. But for some reason, there's policy riders on abortion access in the damn Farm Bill. And I don't know. That's dumb. So Senator Debbie Stabenow, a Democratic leader and one of the top Farm Bill negotiators, was relieved the stopgap funding package included a Farm Bill extension. So, quote, so there's not a lapse in funding for critical agriculture programs, she said on Twitter. But short-term fund bills are like this are no way to run the government, she added. We have crucial needs in this country and abroad, and we need a budget that addresses them. You haven't had a budget since like 2008, I believe. Fact check me on that, but they haven't had like an actual budget that they've passed and was signed into law by the president since like 2008. It's always been these continuing resolutions that were like, all right, we're gonna spend a bunch more money. Ready, go. And then like, we hit our spending cap. And well, we can't just cut spending because then that would make people mad because they want free stuff, so we just got to spend more money. Agriculture groups say while an extension is welcome, lawmakers need to use this momentum to pass a farm bill sooner rather than later. American Farm Bureau Federation said lawmakers are running out of time to write a new bill. We need a new farm bill in early 2024, said American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duval. I don't know if I can trust a guy named Zippy. Anyhow, yeah, that's they've not. So this is from a different article, same website, but shutdown threats in September, prolonged speaker election pushed out consideration of the Farm Bill, which governs hundreds of billions of dollars in food and agricultural spending. Leaders are hoping to approve legislation next year, but have not provided an immediate timeline. This extension is in no way a substitute for passing a 5-year farm bill, and we remain committed to working together to get it done next year, the committee leaders said in a statement. but like not everybody's happy about it. So the current short-term funding proposal includes the one-year extension of the Farm Bill with no reform, status quo policies, and status quo funding levels. Ohio Representative Warren Davis, member of the House Freedom Caucus, wrote on X. Disappointing is as polite as I can muster. I will be voting no. But passed anyways, but you can expect this to be pretty contentious, I would imagine. I don't know. I don't know where it goes. But with all the, particularly with the Israel war, the longer that goes on, like the more likely stuff will get passed just in order so we can give money to Israel. And so all of a sudden you'll see a lot of bipartisan consensus on all sorts of stuff, and it's the way Congress has worked for fucking ever, is just like how we can't come to a compromise, like we're at odds. So typically it's been the Republicans wanted military spending and the Democrats wanted social spending, and now it's the Republicans are a little better on wars, but not on military spending, and in particular, they're bad on foreign aid to Israel because for whatever reason, like it's just blank check for those guys, like always blind support, and yeah. So, but the Democrats are pretty well split on the issue, where the younger crowd is more of a pro-Palestine stance. I'm not going to say pro-Hamas stance. Like there's some idiots out there that view Hamas as the good guys, which I'm not saying they're good guys by any means, but because they're the shit that they do is pretty awful. But you have a wing of the Democrat Party that is kind of all on board with it's not so, I don't even know if they're so much pro Palestine or as they're just anti Israel, but like they view the world as the oppressor versus the oppressed, and it's pretty easy to paint Israel as the oppressor, um, particularly in their minds. But just practically speaking, it's not hard. It's not really not hard to do so. Um, yeah, so like you have enough of the old school Democrats to vote with like the pro Israel Republican wing to get that passed, and then along the way they'll throw the farm bill and whatever else that needs to get done, and they'll try to throw as much shit into one bill as they can and just pass it all at once. That's the continuing resolution model, which we'll see if they move away from that. I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. It could happen. I was watching the Angels in the Outfield with my kids the other day, and there's a little black kid, JP. It could happen. That's kind of how I feel about anything in Washington. It could happen. Moving on, Koch Foods agrees to end unfair exit fees for poultry farmers in DOJ settlement. This comes like right on the heels of the new rule that they made that was supposed to make the poultry industry more transparent. And yeah, like I said, they wasted no time. So Koch Foods Incorporated agreed to no longer charge a termination penalty to chicken growers who switch processors, settling claims with the U.S. Department of Justice that fees prevented suppliers from working with rivals. The Justice Department said last week that a proposed consent decree would prohibit the nation's fifth largest poultry processor from penalizing growers who switch processors and require Koch Foods to return certain fees and penalties already assessed on farmers. The agreement, which needs court approval, follows an anti-competitive lawsuit by the DOJ under the Sherman Act and the Packards and Stockyards Act. The suit claimed Koch's termination fees often amounted to more than half of most growers' total annual take-home income. Enforcement against Koch Foods was announced a day after the Biden administration unveiled plans to tackle anti-competitive behavior in the poultry industry, in part by requiring processors to better inform their suppliers of contract terms. Processors often require farmers to invest heavily in their operations as a part of a contract, which makes it difficult to transition to working with competitors who may also require capital investments. The Department of Justice said Koch used the threat of termination policies to discourage growers from moving to competitors, and that the processor also sued or threatened to sue more than a dozen family farmers who tried to switch. Again, I can't recommend enough the book The Meat Racket that explains a lot about this tournament system that they set up in the poultry industry. It is a very biased book. Um, it's a book with an agenda. However, it is very thorough, and it's very informative. Because if you don't know anything about big agriculture, particularly on the meat side of things, poultry is as bad as it gets. So as far as being a vertically integrated corporate conglomerate monopoly giant behemoth, all encompassing, takes over. Like poultry is where it's at. Like that's the best case, like the best petri dish to look at. What's the word I'm looking for? That's the showcase of how vertical integration works is the poultry industry. So and the meat racket does a really good job of explaining how these anti-competitive practices work, and how much control these corporate giants have. So anyways, however biased it may be, it's a good book to read, and it's very eye-opening to very much just like kind of how the corporate business world works. Koch claims the exit penalty was meant to compensate Koch Foods for the real impact growers leaving has on Koch, the suit reads. But that is just another way of saying that without the exit penalty, Koch would have to pay farmers competitive rates to keep them from switching to one of Koch's competitors. Koch implemented the termination penalty in 2014, and the fee ranges depending on the size of the farm. Justice Department noted fees of $24,000 to $56,000, though said one family farm was charged hundreds of thousands of dollars. So essentially, it was a way to keep somebody from getting more money from Tyson or Pilgrim's Pride or whoever. They like, oh, you're I don't know if it was like that was part of the contract they signed, and so it essentially just made them re-sign the contract with Koch, and so it's kind of it's like very much like company store type shit. Yeah, you could go, but like this is ours and this is ours and this is ours. But this is even more where it's just straight up extortion. Like, oh, yeah, I know you get a better deal over there, but see, like you leaving's gonna hurt us, and we're gonna charge you for that as you leave. And that's like that's like if you ordered a product from the say O'Reilly's or something, and you're like, they had it ordered in, and then in the meanwhile you found it cheaper at AutoZone. They already had it in stock, so you're like, hey, I don't need that part. I already got one. They're like, oh, okay, well we're gonna have to charge you like a stocking fee of $7,000, and then you're like, oh, well, fuck, I guess I'll just buy that part instead, even though it's more expensive, but it's way cheaper than $7,000. Like why? That seems like a huge stocking fee. Like, business is business, man. It's very mob like. Um, As part of the agreement, Koch will refrain from including termination penalties in grower contracts for the next 7 years. It will also be required to meet certain reporting and compliance obligations throughout that time. The suit against Koch is the second recent enforcement action against a large processor under the Packers and Stockyards Act. District Court approved a consent decree in June, resolving the claim that Wayne. Okay, so we talked about that one last week, I believe. So, we'll see where this goes. Seems like a pretty decent ruling. I don't know. We'll see. You know, it's I know a lot of folks are kind of loath to give the DOJ or the Biden administration any credit at all, and I understand they have not done much to deserve it, but this seems like a good thing to because our agricultural system is really out of whack, and a lot of it has to do with big agriculture and how much they've taken advantage of the your small and medium sized family farm and ranch. So that being said, maybe this is a good one. So if it turns out good, kudos to the Biden administration for it. So we'll see. Moving over to the beef side of things, I guess. Well, can't say JBS and not include the pork and the chicken in there as well. But beef is really what their big boy is. But JBS delays plans for a U.S. Stock exchange listing after a request for an investor vote. The world's largest meat company agreed to redo paperwork to comply with a shareholder request as it faces market challenges in North America. JBS plans to list its shares on the U.S. stock exchange as being held back by an investor request to rework what had previously been submitted to federal regulators for scrutiny. So they had already submitted this plan to the feds to get listed on the stock exchange, and now their investors are like, "Hey, wait a minute. We need to vote on this." And the request for a vote came from American Depository Receipt Holders. CEO Gilberto Tomazoni said in an earnings call on Tuesday, "We decided to comply, and this decision forced us to redo the legal structure." I don't know if that was optional that they comply, because I don't know how that works. So it says no timeline for the dual listing was mentioned in the call. This delay comes as JBS navigates through a tough U.S. market backdrop that weighed on its third quarter. Net profit was $117.3 million, which seems like a lot, but it was an 85% decline, dragged down by low availability of cattle. Sales totals $18.7 billion during the period, less than a 1% decline from last year. So sales are still up, but their costs are also way up. So cattle are more expensive, fuel's more expensive, energy, everything's more expensive. So it's even hitting the big boys. Even the Packers are feeling it. Plans to list JBS shares in the U.S. have been in the works for several years, but delays, including a major bribery scandal and the COVID-19 pandemic, have interfered along the way. The company's latest attempt would allow shares to be traded on the New York Stock Exchange through a dual listing under a new Dutch parent company, JBS NV, according to proposal details revealed in July. While Brazil-based JBS is already publicly traded in Sao Paulo, the ability to sell shares in the U.S. would open up deep pockets of cash for the company to expand. We believe this is yet another way to generate even more value to all of our shareholders and our team members and our community, Tomazoni said in the earnings call. JBS had expected to close the deal by the end of the year, but a request to vote on the proposal is holding it up. Tomazzoni said the company is waiting to hear back from the SEC on the revisions before a vote can take place. We do not have a financial urgency in carrying out the listing, he told investors. In the third quarter, JBS saw overall earnings decline as it navigated through a tight cattle market that drove up prices. The company also took on higher grain and input costs, soft chicken prices driven by a global oversupply, and soft consumer demand. North American and Brazilian beef segments saw year-over-year earning declines, as did its Pilgrim's Pride chicken segment. Earnings were offset by positive results in the Australia beef and U.S. pork segments. The Sierra Group is the Sierra food processing segment also saw earnings decline, though JBS expects a rebound with the addition of a new state-of-the-art plant that'll open in October. We are well prepared to navigate this challenging period with security and financial robustness. So the way it sounds like to me, and I may be completely off base here because I don't exactly know how all that works. As I forget the name of that Chris Farley character on SNL when he was like he was the reporter and he's like, I've never had sex with a woman. He's doing the air quotes the whole time for all you audio listeners, and he's like, don't know how that works. That's how I feel about all these publicly traded companies and the regulations and rules surrounding that. So I don't know exactly, but it sounds to me that JBS is shady, always has been. They're not afraid to, grease the wheels, grease a few palms, do a couple reach arounds here and there, whatever it takes to get in good with the government. And then they're very good at the greasing the wheels of commerce, so to speak. I don't know where any of this goes, but I'm sure they'll continue to make a lot of money. The listing as on the U.S. stock exchange would pour in billions of dollars to them, though, and they would be flush with cash to go start projects all over the place. So who knows? But like the cattle supply is a huge issue. It really hurts them a lot. And it also leads to like imported beef because we're running low on it here. Not running low, but it just we're running low on it. Our cow herds is the lowest it's been. Our production numbers are the same, but our herd size is dwindling. So that being said, Paraguay beef imports are now allowed under certain conditions. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, announced the publication of a final rule that will allow the importation of fresh, chilled or frozen beef from Paraguay. APHIS conducted a risk analysis on the importation of the product and concluded that it can be safe under certain conditions. Paraguayan beef was previously restricted due to concerns about foot and mouth disease and other common animal diseases. Under the new rule, in order for the importation of Paraguayan beef, foot and mouth disease must not be diagnosed in the exporting region for the past 12 months. Additionally, the meat must come from premises where foot and mouth disease has not been present during the lifetime of any of the animals. Lastly, the animals must be inspected before and after death. The final rule will be published in the Federal Register as of November 13th and will be effective 30 days after publication. This is a better analysis. I'll put it up on the screen. All right. So the new rule allowing importation that lays out a few requirements. We did that. With a drought causing ranchers to reduce U.S. cattle herd numbers to its smallest level in decades, companies are relying on more on imports to make things like hamburger. Under the agreement, Paraguay must compete with other countries, Brazil, Ireland, Japan, and Namibia, to fill a group tariff rate quota of 65,000 metric tons per year. Paraguay is expected to eventually ship 5 to 10% of the tariff rate quota. Not everyone is excited about this announcement, you can imagine, including the NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Its concern is with Paraguay's history of foot and mouth disease. NCBA says USDA has failed to use information from recent site visits to assess the risk of importing beef to the U.S. Meanwhile, the American Farm Bureau Federation recommended the rule be withdrawn until Paraguay could provide more recent data to protect the U.S. cattle herd from a potential foot and mouth disease outbreak. I don't know much about Paraguayan beef, but apparently foot and mouth disease is a big issue, and the real issue that I have with all of this is the labeling laws, which are just a total sham. And I'm not much for government regulation, but I am for like people being liable for fraud. And all they have to do under current rules is anything that's imported, if value is added to it within the United States, it becomes able to be labeled as product of the U.S. So by simply putting a label that says product of the U.S., you are increasing the value of that product. And therefore, now that's American beef, even though that animal never stepped foot live on our soil. And that seems very fraudulent. I'm not saying that the beef is bad, but I think there should be a labeling issue. You know, like maybe I'm coming more around to the RCAF side of things on that labeling issue, but it is yeah, I think there is something to that. It's a very fraudulent practice of just or adding a little bit of American tallow to lean Paraguayan beef and calling that now product of the U.S. and never mentioning the initial origin of the protein content, which is what people are wanting to buy, is the protein. You don't see a whole lot of people going specifically for the fat content. I mean, most people are there for the protein. So that part came from a foreign country, but nowhere is that labeled on there. And so that seems like an issue to me. So we'll see, but a lot of that stuff goes to fast food restaurants. So if you're not eating fast food, or if you're buying locally grown stuff, you don't have to worry about where your food comes from, because or at least you know a little bit better. So if you can, buy direct from your local rancher farmer. Even in your biggest cities, there's not far outside of them, there's some agricultural area and people actually growing stuff to eat. So check with them before you go to a big chain store. And I may get some pushback from like NCBA types and meat industry types about how our stuff is completely safe. And like, it's safer than most of the rest of the world. I'll grant that point, but I also do not trust these big corporations. They've been known to lie over and over again. And while I've had some experience working with them, yeah, they do a pretty good job of quality control. But the bigger an operation gets, the less oversight there seems to have. I mean, just by nature, like you have to hire more people to oversee it, and that costs more money. And those giant corporations, they're all about maximizing production and profit. So if that means squeezing out a few quality assurance people, so be it. And I mean, that's just business, baby. And so yeah, I absolutely think that, generally speaking, buying directly from your farmer or rancher or a local butcher is far safer than buying from. I wouldn't even say far safer. I just like you have more peace of mind. You know where it came from, as opposed to buying from Walmart or one of your big grocery chains. So I'm sure that'll ruffle a few feathers of those in the meat industry, but yeah, it is what it is. I stand by it. I stand by my statement. And last one I have for you today. I guess I got two. So this says the food industry is all in on regenerative agriculture. Can farmers be convinced? In response to the rising crisis of soil degradation and excess carbon in the atmosphere, companies in the ag sector are attempting to offer a twofold solution: storing carbon in the soil. The practice is known as carbon farming, also called regenerative agriculture, is natural and as old as time. As the term and practice is becoming central to the food industry's sustainability goals, a host of new companies are cropping up to capitalize on this booming business. Acting as liaisons between farmers and organizations looking to relieve carbon debt, companies like Indigo Ag, AgReprove, Nori, Truterra, and Bayer are defining the carbon credit industry and facilitating relationships that allow regenerative practices to have an impact at scale. While startups like Pivot Bio, Pluton Bio, and Locus Agriculture are working to create fertilizer alternatives that are more sustainable yet allow farmers to yield similar to, if not better than, synthetic chemicals. However, to be successful, the emerging industry will have to convince farmers that regenerative agriculture is not just good for the environment, but also profitable. Sustainability begins with profitability, said Chad Pollack, former CEO of Locus Ag, maker of alternative fertilizers that also oversees its own carbon credit program. If the grower doesn't have an opportunity to reinvest in their operation, it's very difficult for them to expand into regenerative ag practices. From biofertilizers to carbon credit programs, startups and major companies alike are racing to get in on a burgeoning industry centered around changing the way farmers do business. Biofertilizer companies have raked in hundreds of millions of dollars in investor funding and are teaming up with some of the world's largest agriculture companies to bring more sustainable crop protection products to market. Some startups are becoming major players in and of themselves. Microbial producer Pivot Bio is planning a major expansion as revenue surpasses the $100 million mark. Alternative fertilizers play a pivotal role in regenerative agriculture by reducing reliance on chemicals and pesticides and fostering a naturally enriched soil system by promoting microbial diversity and nutrient cycling. So you've been hearing a lot about regenerative agriculture, and I'm by and large in favor of it. I don't know if it scales though, but here they're saying that it could, and I don't know if that's just a sales pitch or if that's true. But I think there is some real merit to it, where as opposed to just tilling everything up, spraying a bunch of pesticide down, killing off your weeds, planting your crop, and then a genetically modified crop which becomes resistant to a pesticide and an herbicide, particularly an herbicide, Roundup Ready corn and soybeans. Glyphosate, which has been linked to also, I don't know which sorts of cancer, but cancer, I think like leukemia. But yet it's used everywhere. I mean, it's in it, the water supply and all sorts of crazy shit. So the problem that I think it's later in this article, the problem is like there's a steep drop off in production as you're switching over. And so it's like a lot of no-till stuff, and it's essentially trying to keep as much organic matter in the ground as possible, and therefore keeping your carbon in the soil, which creates a healthy topsoil, all that. And there's some real merits to it. How you do it on a large scale, I don't know, but it seems like the thing about this is I think the water issue is a real issue, and the market is responding to that. Whether farmers, and that's kind of the issue with subsidies is, and all these government programs, it keeps farmers locked into this monocrop, corn, wheat, soybean, whatever it is, commodity type crops, and they keep growing this because the incentives are there from the government. However, those are some of the worst farming practices because it depletes your topsoil, and you gotta continually pump fertilizer and pesticide and herbicide on your crops to get them to grow, and more water. Where as the regenerative practices, it enhances moisture retention in the soil and whatever. So how you do it on scale, I don't know, but it seems like the market is starting to react to that. And this is where they're saying like some incentives from the government, incentives being subsidies, could cause it to really take off, which could spur innovation. And there is a very valid argument to be made that a public-private cooperation like that could result in some huge technological advances and really kind of transform how we do agriculture here in the U.S. But whether that all is done remains to be seen. And what are the unintended consequences should that happen? That remains to be seen. But all in all, it goes more into like the carbon swap, the cap and trade type system of the carbon market. And it's an interesting concept. We'll see how it works, how it plays out in the future. But I think it's going to become a way bigger part. You've seen a lot of no-till stuff over the past like 10, 20 years. Hasn't taken off as much as people would have, as a lot of people would have liked to seen, but there has been some improvements, and we'll see where it goes. But farmers and ranchers are real slow to change, and we'll see. So I guess the last one we'll end it on a high note for me, anyways. I think this is good news, but Argentina just held their elections, and they elected Javier Milei, who was kind of a radical libertarian. He calls himself an anarcho-capitalist, meaning that it's his political philosophy is strictly 100% based on private property rights. He has goals to tackle their inflation, which we think ours is bad. The Argentine peso is facing an inflation rate of like 140% right now. We're bitching about 8, 9, 11%, which is, it's a lot. I'm not happy of it, but 140% magnitude's worse. So they're in pretty dire straits, and he's looking to take them off the peso altogether and transition them to the US dollar. Major cuts to their welfare system and their subsidy. We'll see what he gets done. I won't be shocked if this guy gets assassinated. Tempers run hot down in South America, so and they've had some issues with that in the past. I'm not real familiar, but I worked for a guy from Argentina, real smart guy, and values align fairly closely with mine. And there's a reason he left Argentina, and he's so overall, I think at least this guy's trying to. He seems to be on the side of liberty and free markets, and that's a good thing in my opinion. So I wish him all the best. I'm really pulling for this guy. I like Argentina as a country. My former boss, we kind of ended on a sour note, but I respect the guy a lot, and he's a very smart guy, very good man. Raised two really good sons. I don't know his daughter that well. She was still pretty young when I worked for him. But either way, like I respect a man, particularly based on his kids, and his kids they're good eggs. So he was a good guy, and I got a lot of respect for Argentina and Argentine culture. They got a fascinating history, and so I'm cheering this dude on, Javier Milei, and I hope he does well. And I'd like to see people doing good, and I like to see people fighting for liberty and individual liberty and freedom and free markets, free enterprise, all that good stuff. Just freedom and liberty in general. I'm a big fan of. So congrats to Javier Milei in Argentina, and I hope it turns out the best. I hope y'all have a good weekend. Have a great Thanksgiving this week. There's a lot to be thankful for, despite of an overall kind of a weird, shitty year. It could be worse, and there's a lot to be thankful for. So I'll be celebrating Thanksgiving light. I'm still doing my 75 hard fitness challenge, so I'm not eating bread, not drinking booze. I've got 10 days left. So, and then I'll be ready to party for the holiday season. But I'm getting back into shape. I'm down about 15 pounds. Feel like I'm looking pretty decent, and I'm gonna continue this on through and try to stay fit. My kids are growing up fast, and they move fast, so I gotta try to keep up with them. So, and yeah, as you heard at the top of the show before we got in here, I'm working with First Form. They're helping me out, make really good stuff, helping me get back to the old fighting weight. So I recommend all their stuff. I've tried a lot of it so far, and they make really, really good stuff. Their protein powder tastes great. It's all really good stuff. Really good company. They like to help people out, help them succeed. So I highly recommend them. So if you're looking to get in shape, they got a lot of stuff to help you get there. You'll see results if you put the work in, that's for sure. So head over to firstform.com/Burnin Daylight. That's 1stphorm.com/Burnin Daylight. And free shipping on any orders over $75. So check it out. Good product. Y'all stay safe out there. Have an excellent Thanksgiving. We'll have our football show coming up tomorrow night, and we'll put our picks in. Not a great week of betting this week. It was okay. Not great. Wasn't real happy with it, but we'll get them this week, I'm sure. So this has been the Friggin' Farm and Ranch Report for Monday, November 20th, 2023. Move your ass. We're burning daylight.
You rise up in the morning beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. them all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the south, till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Burning